Hey, well, after doing a review of The Deep House, I thought why not have a look at one of the other movies by the same directors? One that I mentioned in the previous review, in fact. The 2007 film Inside. There was an American remake done in 2017 starring Rachel Norris and Laura Harring, but I haven't seen that this time. I might watch it at some point, I don't know. Okay, so Inside is set in France, and it follows a pregnant woman called Sarah, played by Alison Paradis. She's had something of a rough time of it, having been in a car crash and lost her husband, but that will arguably pale next to what she's gonna have to experience over the course of the story. The film opens with a car crash, and this is seen mainly from the unborn baby's point of view. And between that, the dirge-like music and the imagery playing under the opening credits, we know we're going to go to a dark place with this one. This is not going to be an easy watch. Credits end then, and Sarah is being examined at a hospital the day prior to the birth of her child. After talking to a rather strange nurse in the waiting room, she leaves to meet her friend Louise, played by Nathalie Roussel, who means well. It's Christmas and she doesn't want Sarah to be on her own, but she just comes across as a bit of a mother hen character to me, really. So, Sarah now goes to the park and shoots a few photos of kids running around. These photos will become more important a little bit later on. She's a photojournalist by trade and is there to meet with her boss Jean-Pierre. I'm not going to butcher the actor's name. About going with her to the hospital to give birth to a child, and she gives him a set of keys so he can get into the house. Jean-Pierre gives her a ride home, and later that evening she starts having hallucinations of her dead husband, eventually falling asleep in a rocking chair. She has a nightmare and wakes up suddenly to the sound of the doorbell ringing. She's a pregnant woman on her own, it's late at night, and there is violence happening in the area, so she talks to the caller through the door rather than opening it to let them in. The caller in question is a character known only as La Femme, played by Beatrice Dahl. Immediately something seems off about her as she tries to get into the house to use the phone, but then with a single line of dialogue the situation escalates. La Femme becomes aggressive and violent almost immediately, and Sarah is understandably terrified and calls the police, at which point La Femme promptly disappears. The police show up and tell her that everything is cool, that there's no one out there, and that she might be being a little paranoid, but to call them if anything else happens. They promise to send someone to check on her later. Sarah thanks them, and off they go. Later that night, La Femme comes back, and complete and utter carnage ensues. Sarah is violently attacked, and everyone in the house, Jean-Pierre and Sarah's mother who stop by, even Sarah's pet cat, meets a bad end, basically. In the midst of all of this violence, however, questions are being asked. Why is this happening? Why is it happening to Sarah specifically? And what exactly is the connection between these two women? We spend the rest of the film finding out the answers to these questions, so I won't spoil it here with too many answers. At this point in the story, the police show up again with a prisoner in tow, and there's a very small moment of light relief before the two officers enter the house and more wince-inducing blood-soaked slaughter occurs. Cop number 3. There's 3 policemen in total, so this is the cop that hasn't got in the house yet. Realizes that there's something up, and he and the prisoner enter the house, see the aftermath of what's been going on, and they go to find Sarah, who's in her bathroom, and appears to be in a profound state of shock. The bathroom looks a bit like an abattoir at this point. They go looking for La Femme, and they think she's gone. Pop. Out goes the power, and the whole place is plunged into darkness. Sarah, meanwhile, after this, goes for a lay down. The cop and the prisoner go to try and restore power, and La Femme shows up and kills them both. Or so we think. After this, there is an almost tender moment between La Femme and Sarah, but it ends badly. The action moves to the kitchen, where Sarah injures La Femme, possibly mortally. She runs off, and Sarah makes a weapon and goes after her. When Sarah finds her, La Femme delivers some of the most important lines in the film, finally explaining their connection and extorting from the audience the one real moment of sympathy we have for her. Meanwhile, power comes back on, and it turns out that someone else in the house is actually still alive. While they are indeed alive, they're all fucked up, so La Femme finishes them off quickly enough. They don't present any kind of a challenge to her. Sarah tries to escape, but goes into labour, and after a graphic C-section, the baby is born. La Femme takes the baby in her arms and sits in the rocking chair that we found Sarah in earlier in the film, the one that she fell asleep in for a while. And the camera pans over Sarah's dead and ruined body, and although we hear a baby's cry, the last shot of the film is La Femme holding the unmoving baby as music plays and we cut to black, roll credits. So, main question I was left with at the end is who or what exactly is La Femme? She appears to be flesh and blood, a human being, but there is a suggestion near the end of the film that she might be some kind of an avenging spirit, or at least a woman who sees herself as dead given what happened to her. It's also possible, at least to me, that she could be a twisted version of Mary from the Bible, desperately seeking absolution through another woman's child, which might fit, given the Christmas setting, but she can just as easily be viewed as a demonic presence trying to rob Mary of Christ. Either way, it's not spelled out exactly who or what she is or what she represents, which I like. To say that Inside is a disturbing film is to state the obvious, really. The sound, the imagery, the claustrophobia, they all combine to produce a sense of dread and depressing, often sad atmosphere. Nothing here is going to end well, and we feel this from the very opening of the movie. The shots of the child's reaction in her mother's womb to everything that is happening are harrowing, and the gore is visceral and real enough to make the audience react, all of which together make it a favourite of many fans of the genre. However, there is more on offer here than torture porn, and I think that if you're looking for a well-acted, moving exploration of motherhood, loss, desperation and tragedy that just happens to use gore as a storytelling element, this film will be a powerful experience. Personally, I think it's impossible not to feel at least some sympathy for both of the women. Sarah, obviously, for her struggle to survive and protect the baby, but also for La Femme for everything that she's lost. People may draw comparisons between this film and the French version of a film called Martyrs, which came out in 2008, because of the amount of gore and focus on two female leads. But the two are very different films and aren't really comparable in my mind in either tone, imagery or story. Finally, as I mentioned above, I think that the combination of Christmas and motherhood here suggests a possible religious undertone to the film, and one does get the impression that maybe the story is trying to say something on that kind of narrative level. However, this doesn't need to be the case. The fact that it's set at Christmas can equally be seen in terms of a time traditionally associated with life and happiness being turned into one filled with darkness and death. Okay, well, that was my review of Inside. It's not a fun watch, but it's one that I can recommend if you like this kind of film. It's quite powerful, it's rather well acted, I thought, for a film of this type, and it's worth a watch, I would say. If you don't like gore, it could well be very off-putting. I mean, the gore is quite graphic and intense, but it never feels gratuitous, at least to me, particularly, as with some films in the so-called torture porn genre. Yeah. So, give it a look if it's your kind of thing, and as always, and with all of the above being said, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that other good stuff, and I will catch you later. Bye for now.